Hey, Pixie, how are
Hello.
you? Good to have you back on 3-ingredient recipes.
Thanks.
So,
What are we making today?
well, I was thinking that since it's going to start getting a lot cooler soon, we would make something nice and hearty, and it can be used in a lot of different recipes, including a soup or a stew.
Yeah, what is it?
What do you think?
Soup or stew?
In a soup or a stew. It's nice and hearty.
Chicken.
No. Chickens come pre-made.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Chickens are just made out of chicken.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But if you made a chicken soup, what would go well in it?
Rice.
Well, rice is also something that comes all by itself. How about something else?
Okay, something we make that goes with it. It's chicken and our rice and... Noodles!
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 That's right. Today...
That's what it is, it's noodles!
Noodles! Today we are going to make a 3-ingredient egg noodle recipe that's just as easy as it is delicious, and it doesn't take any time at all to make.
And I thought noodles came by themselves.
Nope. So our first ingredient for egg noodles is, of course...
Eggs.
Eggs. We're going to use 3 large eggs in this. We're going to use the whole eggs for this. Use large, extra large...
Do those come from the chicken?
They do come from the chicken.
I know, but do they come from our chicken?
I don't think... Well, no, Louise doesn't have these cute little cartons, so we got these from the store.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start with 3 eggs.
3 of them.
Our next ingredient is flour.
That's not a flour!
This is all-purpose flour.
Oh, Flour!
Exactly.
Never mind.
Never mind. We are going to use 2 cups, although that is variable. You might use a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the size of your eggs and on how well your egg noodles are coming together. So have 2 cups ready to go, but you might need a little bit more, and you're definitely going to need more to dust your surface while you are rolling this out.
And what else?
Okay. Our final ingredient is salt.
Salt!
Yep.
No pepper?
You can always add pepper later. The salt is really
That
necessary.
would be 3 ingredients.
That wouldn't be 3 ingredients. The salt's really necessary to your noodles because otherwise they're not going to taste like very much at all. So we are going to use...
It tastes like flour and eggs.
They just taste like flour and eggs. The salt really brings it all together, and we're going to use about a ½ teaspoon of salt.
Oh.
Let's see how to make this. All right, I'm starting out with 3 eggs in my bowl. This is the only liquid that we have in the recipe, so I'm going to be very careful when I add the flour to this that I'm not adding too much flour and making it too crumbly of a dough. You can always use a little bit of milk or a little bit of water to loosen up the dough a little bit if you happen to add too much flour, or you can keep another egg in reserve just to add a little bit more liquid if you want to keep this to a true 3-ingredient recipe. I'm going to just whisk these up until they're nice and frothy. Now I'm going to start adding my flour. I'm going to start with 1 cup. I'll probably add 2 full cups and a little bit more, but it depends entirely on a lot of factors, including the size of the eggs, how much is absorbed, what kind of day it is even. If it's a more humid day, you might get a stickier dough. What we're looking to do is start to form a dough that doesn't get too sticky before we go to starting to knead it with our hands. So this first cup I'm adding in all at once because I know it's going to definitely take more than 1 cup, but then I'm going to add a little bit at a time as I go along. Okay, so this is the first cup of flour is incorporated. I'm going to start adding in a little bit of the second cup of flour at a time, at least until I get it to what feels like a dough-like consistency. What I want is for it to become not too sticky and for it to start holding itself together, but also not getting crumbly. We're not looking for a cookie dough texture. We're definitely looking for a texture that's pliable and holds itself together without crumbling apart. And as soon as you can, even if it feels a little bit sticky, you're going to want to start working with this with your hands so you can really feel how sticky or how crumbly you're getting. I'm going to add in some more flour here. Alright, so we have gotten to the consistency I'm looking for. It's not too sticky. There's a little bit of stickiness, but that's okay. What I don't want to do is knead this like a bread. You will get very chewy and tough noodles if you knead this too much, if you work the dough too much, because you don't really want to activate the gluten. So what we're going to do is just form this into a nice little ball. just so that it's holding itself together pretty well. And again, you're not trying to work with the flour too much. You just want it to all hold together into a nice ball. And then put a whole lot of flour down on your work surface. You might think there's too much flour, that you're incorporating too much into your dough, but your dough will not hold more flour than can be absorbed. So anything that's still on there is just going to come right off. It won't get absorbed in by the eggs. One thing I did forget to mention was in my first cup of flour, I did add in my salt. So don't forget to put that in. I just forgot to mention it. I had already measured it out into the first cup of flour. Now it's time to roll this out. If you have a pasta machine, you can absolutely use that. I don't have a pasta machine, and in fact I want to make these very rustic noodles. So I'm just going to use a rolling pin. And in fact I forgot to flour that, so let's flour the rolling pin. The key to this is to use as much flour as you can and to roll this out as thin as you can. Okay, so this is now nice and thin. If there's sticking anywhere at the bottom, as you see this little edge has stuck, I'm just going to put a little bit of flour at the bottom. Make sure that the whole sheet of pasta or of noodles that you have right here isn't sticking to the counter, because what we're going to do next is just let this rest. Once you have this out to the thickness or the thinness that you want, the thinness of noodles, just think about egg noodles and how thick you like them. Once you have them rolled out to that thickness, make sure that you can move your entire sheet of dough on the counter, and then we're going to let this rest for about an hour. So you can just cover this up. I'm just using a clean dish towel. That's just going to keep it nice and clean as we're waiting. Letting this rest really allows the noodles to hold their shape when you're boiling them. You can, of course, just take these and just drop them directly into boiling water, but you do run the risk at that point of having the noodles just fall directly apart back into eggs and flour. So if you just let them rest an hour, some people actually say about 4 hours, but I find that you don't really need to do that unless you're going to store your noodles for another time. If you want to dry them out completely, you can do that as well. So we're just going to let these hang out, and then we will boil them up and see how they taste. Okay, so this has rested for a little over an hour. I took a little bit more time than I thought I would, and that's okay. You can let it rest as long as you want to. You can even dry this out completely and store it for use at a later time. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting this into approximately whatever size noodles I want. So I'm going to start by making some cuts for length. And then you can stack these up and start cutting them all in a row. But because this is a small batch, I'm just going to start cutting these at about the size of the egg noodles that I want to cook. Now I'm just going to gather these up and I will get them ready to put into our broth. I have a pot of boiling chicken broth, so I am going to just drop my noodles right into that. You want to make sure to keep them as far apart as you can, and then also remember that these noodles do have some flour on them. The flour will help to thicken up your broth or your stock or your soup, and so it may also cause the top to get a little bit cloudy. Don't worry about it too much. Now these only take a couple of minutes. I'm just going to stir it really gently. These will only take a couple of minutes. When they start floating back up to the top, they're pretty much cooked. You just want to make sure they're cooked all the way through because you're starting off with a raw dough. And then they're ready to serve right up. So we're going to find out just how good these came out. So what do you think?
Yum.
These are really, really delicious, and they're so easy. It's one of those things that you think you might not have the ingredients to make a homemade recipe, but if you have the things that you would normally have in your pantry, like eggs and flour and salt, you have enough to make some noodles. And also, pasta is one of those things that tends to scare people. They think that they don't know how to make pasta. Or
I'm scared of the pasta.
Nope, don't get scared of the pasta.
I'm scared of the pasta.
You can make a really
nice...
nice...
You said I'm scared, so I'm gonna be scared.
Pixie's gonna be scared of the pasta. But then we're going to eat the pasta.
Okay.
All right. So this is about as easy as you can make. And you can make them any size you want to. You could make this into a thin spaghetti. You could make it into a ravioli and fill it with something really, really delicious.
That wouldn't be 3 ingredients.
That wouldn't be 3 ingredients, but the base...
The filling could be 3 ingredients.
The filling could be 3 ingredients, and then the soup could be 3 ingredients, and then we could just have 3 ingredients all around.
6 ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was pretty good, I think.
Yeah!
Yeah, so you have proven that it is very easy to make homemade, really good meals.
Yeah.
So if people
Aren't you glad I came?
I'm really glad you came. If people are glad that you came and would like to see you show up again, what can they do?
Subscribe!
Well, subscribing certainly does help. It does let you know when somebody posts a new video, and if we have a new video with Pixie, then we will definitely let you know through your subscription. But if they want to see you again, they could comment down below. If you want to see type right away. And if you want to see us make a recipe with 3 ingredients, let us know. If you want us to try a certain style of cooking, certainly let us know about that. We'd love to hear from you. And then also you can share this with your friends.
Share.
Yep. So
I don't want to share the food though.
No, well, you don't have to share the food, but if you share the video, it really helps us out. So I think this was a pretty good success, and I think we're ready.
Yeah.
I think we're ready for the cooler weather. We've got some noodles to make some soup.
Yeah.
So that's about it. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for joining us this time. We'll see you again next time.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So what do you think?
Good. I should have held the spoon though.
Do you want to hold the spoon? Okay. Well, now you're gonna have to. Okay, there you go. I always forget when we have a live hand puppet. All right.